Of HorseCenter, brought to you by Horse Racing Nation and Derby Wars. I'm Brian Zipse, and as always, I'm joined by my very capable partner, Matt Shifman. Matt, how are you?
It's great to be here.
And back in Louisville, we have our executive producer, Ember Marr.
Hi, Ember.
Big weeks behind us, big weeks ahead, Matt. Last week we saw a lot of good action, Super Saturday from both Belmont Park and Santa Anita. And maybe the thing that stood out most to me of all was on the West Coast, where Shared Belief overcame trouble, overcame a rough trip, overcame a questionable ride to win the Awesome Again Stakes. Did he prove himself as the Breeders' Cup Classic favorite?
I think he stamped himself as the Breeders' Cup favorite, and we got to see another side of Shared Belief, and I think it was an important side. Everything didn't go his way. He didn't have an easy trip. He had a pretty brutal trip and overcame the adversity, showed courage going down the stretch, and won the race. And you know, people might be worried about, you know, Shared Belief now, but I think that was a great learning experience for the 3-year-old.
Less people, I think, are worried about Shared Belief going after the race than they were going in. He overcame trouble, and that's something that champions need to do. It was the first time in his career. Let's roll a videotape on that stretch call. Now, we're not going to see in this stretch run where he's battling with Fed Biz to the wire and surges away late, but we're not going to see Victor Espinoza on a big long shot. Sky Kingdom, trained by Bob Baffert, who also trained Fed Biz, the horse that Shared Belief is edging out here at the finish, kind of pushing Shared Belief wide on the first turn, on the backstretch, with a big long shot. What do you think, Matt? Dirty pull?
I think push was a pretty mild adjective to use there, Brian. He rode that horse pretty wide. The thing that bothered me most was in the aftermath of California Chrome's race in Pennsylvania when Victor Espinoza was, to me, whining about what happened, the ridership in that race, for him to come out and with no subtlety at all do what he did. I don't know. To me, that felt like bad sportsmanship, and that's what bothered me the most. Give him 7 days, whatever. I just don't think it looked good.
Fair enough. And personally, I wrote an article about the 7-day suspension. It got a ton of comments, people going one way or the other. It seemed like they either completely agreed or completely disagreed. There wasn't much in between. I'm with you. Of course, we're not Victor Espinoza. We can't exactly get into his head. But it seemed like, and I think a lot of people are missing this point, that there was some carryover from what happened in the Penn Derby, all the criticism he took. California Chrome is a rival of Shared Belief, whether they've raced before or not. So I think he went in there with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. That's my opinion. Yeah. Be that as may, and he tried to bother Shared Belief.
And I agree with you, because at this point, Shared Belief is on the upswing, California Chrome's on the downswing. If Shared Belief doesn't win that race, I think the tables are back on a level playing field, and that's not how it turned out.
Maybe so, maybe so. California Chrome has still done more in 2014 than Shared Belief, but yeah, obviously Shared Belief's career again is on an upward trend. Speaking of another 3-year-old who's back on an upward trend, we got to look to Belmont Park. And the race of the week was the Jockey Club Gold Cup, the prestigious Jockey Club Gold Cup. And it was won by a horse who hadn't won a race since the Belmont Stakes. But we all knew he's a tough horse. And back at Belmont Park, Tonalist was able to do this. Let's roll that tape. So, Matt, he's proving best. I thought both him and Zevo had a little trouble during the race.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tonalist came from way back this time, was sitting in, I think, second to last place most of the way around the track. And fortunately, I think that kept him away from the trouble that happened with with Rajiv and Wicked Strong. So I think that
was
worked out well.
Scary situation.
Yeah, absolutely was. And, you know, and then making reference back to Espinoza today also, Junior Alvarado was given 15 days for the careless riding. And, you know, and Junior...
Reno caused Wicked Strong's trouble. He came over. Junior got more than twice what Victor got as far as suspensions go.
Yes. It certainly was an unusually large number of days for careless riding in New York. And Junior did not, you know, didn't argue with anything. He admitted that his mistake, and
he made a mistake, and he was punished for it. And I think the severity of things probably are magnified in such a big race. So that could go along with the 15 days suspension. But back to Titleist. He's won the Peter Pan. He's won the Belmont. He's won the Jockey Club. He's proven at the distance of 1.25 miles. All those wins, all those stakes wins do come at Belmont Park, though. So he's going to have to go somewhere else to do it if he wants to do the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Yep, absolutely. But he did look strong going down the stretch on his home field. I think we had that pretty well picked out last week when you know, I talked about I like the 3-year-olds in the Jockey Cup, Globe Cup, and I think Brian, no, and I think Brian, you said out of the 3-year-olds you liked
Titleist was the one I liked best. Yep. Yeah, and Zevo ran a good race. I was a little disappointed by Moreno, but with the odd post configuration at Belmont Park for 10 furlongs and the other speed in there, I think Moreno was always up against it a little bit. But Titleist ran a big race, and Matt, you know what that means because of the prestige of the Jockey Club Gold Cup, because of the field he beat. I loved what Shared Belief did in California. Nothing against the West Coast horses, folks, but my Zat Star of the Week has to be Titleist.
A prestigious win in the Jockey Club Gold Cup and a prestigious Zat Star of the Week.
Zat Star of the Week. Well, he's the latest Zat Star of the Week, so that's something. But there were so many more stars than just Titleist and Shared Belief. The list goes on from Super Saturday.
It does.
We're both impressed with his main sequence.
Absolutely. Again, you know, 3 races in this country, 3 grade 1s, 3 the same way. Dawdle's out of the gate in that European style and makes a move, and he is tough down the stretch. Rajiv has given him 3 terrific rides. This time they made their move a little bit early, and main sequence waited a little bit for other horses, but he still pulled it out in the end. I love the way that horse runs. I love his style. I love his courage down the stretch. I'm looking forward to seeing him again.
Pretty noteworthy the way he's won those 3 grade 1 races. Only 3 grade 1 races in America. He's only run 3 races in America. He's won them all late by a photo. Twilight Eclipse has been the brunt of his victories, if you will, because twice he was second and once he was a close third.
Third, yep.
He ran a good race and was actually bothered by main sequence in the last couple of yards. I didn't think he should come down. Rajiv, of course, we touched on it a little bit with Wicked Strong. He broke his arm after falling off Wicked Strong. So hopefully he will heal up well and be ready to ride.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised to hear that there is a chance that he's going to be okay by the Breeders' Cup. I saw that maybe in 2 weeks he was going to be able to go back to the doctor and start working out a little bit. So that was a little bit of a break. So I hope Rajiv is there in California.
We wish him well. Rajiv, top rider, and he's got some great mounts this year. Artemis Agriterra being another one. Matt, I just want you to know, if anything happens to me out on the golf course, if somehow I break a bone, I'm going to be here on Thursday to film HorseCenter with you. Don't worry.
Thank goodness. I knew you'd step up.
Unless it's you and Ember, that might be an improvement. Let's look at a couple other races at Belmont Park on Super Saturday. I think one we can't gloss over, we can't skip over, is the 2nd consecutive win. This is the first horse. Private Zone is the first horse to win the Vosburg 2 years in a row for more than 30 years. And, you know, with only 1 little turf sprint under his belt this year, it was a fabulous performance. Can we roll videotape? There he is fighting off Dad's caps. Matt, what'd you think of Private Zone?
It was impressive right out of the gate. He was dragging Martin Pedroza down the back stretch. He knew he had a lot of horse and made a big move. And 2 years in a row, different trainers, big buyer speed figures both times. 108 last year, 106 this year. Very impressive effort.
He's always been a serious sprinter, and we've seen him run well at Santa Anita in the past, Matt. So just like Secret Circle, he's a horse that doesn't need a lot to be at his best, and I consider him a threat now in the Breeders' Cup Sprint.
Yeah, and I saw today that Renee Douglas, who is the manager of the stable, was grappling with the decision, the trainer decision, and Douglas said that he's going back to Doug O'Neill again.
Oh, okay.
For the Breeders' Cup.
Interesting. Well, they have a talented horse, and sometimes in the sprint, that's all you need. He'll have plenty of competition. Stephanie's Kitten. Stephanie's Kitten won the Flower Ball. It was her first win of the year. She's run awfully well in her previous couple of races before this. But I don't know about you. Emollient won the Rodeo Drive the same day in California, beat a full field out there. But I kind of think that the Eastern Turf fillies, namely Stephanie's Kitten, is probably the best. They're probably better than the California fillies. The European fillies might be a different story. Mm-hmm. But I don't think there's a better turf filly or mare in America than Stephanie's Kitten right now.
Yeah, and Chad Brown insisted that all Stephanie's Kitten needed was to get a good trip, and she got that, and he was right, and she got back in the winner's circle.
Very impressive. She's a good one. Speaking of good older fillies, how about Beholder coming back? We've been waiting for the return of Beholder, and we got it. It might not have been the easy win that we expected. It might not have been at the expense of Iotapa like we expected, but she won.
And that's good. It creates great drama for the Breeders' Cup. Beholder going for a third Breeders' Cup win. It's a neat story.
It is a neat story. Mandela said after the race that he didn't have her at 100% for the race. She was bound to be a little short, so I don't mind that she looked a little short. She was a little short, but she was good enough to win that, and she'll be improved filly. And she's got closed hatches, and she's got untappable. It's really setting up as a great this year.
Yeah, she's only lost once at Santa Anita in her career.
Yeah, and she's won I think 7 times.
Yep.
So she's a force to be reckoned with for sure at Santa Anita. And there was also a young force to be reckoned with. I think that was unveiled for the first time at Santa Anita. American Pharoah, who became a Grade 1 winner at Del Mar in spectacular fashion after not having much go his way in his debut. And he basically repeated the effort, this time stretching out to a mile 16th. At Santa Anita in the front runner. He's the 2-year-old to beat. He's the early Kentucky Derby favorite, I guess, right now.
I think right now it's the West Coast edition of the Zayat Stable 2-year-olds.
Yeah, there's a few good ones. American Pharoah. Let's take a look at that front runner if we could. Let's see the stretch run. So American Pharoah looked good again. He stretched out to a mile 16th, Matt. I think, judging from competitive edge being lost for the Breeders' Cup this year, probably the East's best 2-year-old colt so far, that American Pharoah could go to the Breeders' Cup as maybe one of the bigger favorites in the World Championships this year.
Yeah, it seems that way. And, American Pharoah will no doubt face a big field in the juvenile, and that's always tricky for these young horses.
Anything can happen. Yeah, he's the one to beat, but it's too early to get too crazy about picking one horse for any Breeders' Cup race. Although we might try a little bit later in the show. Dun dun dun. He's sired by a young, good young sire, a good young Zayat runner, and sire Pioneer of the Nile. I'm guessing that could be your stud of the week this week.
Could be, but I'm gonna go with Candy Ride, who is the sire of Shared Belief. The undefeated Shared Belief is sired by Candy Ride, who himself was an undefeated runner. And Candy Ride not only is the sire of Shared Belief, but Candy Ride is also, I think, fourth in earnings in North America with over 8 million. So Candy Ride is doing great things as a stallion. And hey, he might have the lead. He's got the leading 3-year-old in the country and one of the leading candidates for Horse of the Year. So the stud of the week is Candy Ride.
Candy Ride. You can't go wrong with Candy Ride, Matt. I found it interesting that Candy Ride's last race of his life was a big win in the Pacific Classic. He took it to Medaglia d'Oro, if I remember correctly, and that was his 6th and final race. He was undefeated in 6 races. And, you know, Shared Belief, when he won the Pacific Classic, as a 3-year-old, of course, when Shared Belief did it, that was his 6th race. So now Shared Belief has done his daddy one better with his win in the Awesome again. That was win number 7 for Shared Belief.
Yeah. I don't know if we're going to see Shared Belief try and win on the turf like his daddy did, though, but that would be amazing.
Yeah, well, Shared Belief has proven he can do it on 2 surfaces. Candy Ride was nothing if not versatile, though. Excellent. All right, let's try to break out something new. We're always looking to do something new. Matt, are you with me?
I think so. Let's do it. I always love new things.
New things. I thought you always worry. A little of both?
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both. Okay, folks, we're going to do something new on HorseCenter. I hope you like it. It was fun putting together for Matt and I. We're going to do our first top 10 list on HorseCenter. And this week, in honor of the big race at Belmont, the prestigious and historic Champagne Stakes, we are going to unveil our top 10 Champagne editions of all time. Matt, I've been watching the Champagne for 40 years. I don't know how long you've been watching.
Just about that long also.
Just about that long.
Except you started when you were a lot younger than I was, Brian.
Yeah, I was at those races as a toddler, and it was fun. Thank you, Dad. Okay, let's start the list with number 10. Matt, you want to start us off?
I will. Number 10 is Uncle Mo. Uncle Mo is our only representative in the top 10 from the 21st century.
The 21st century.
Uncle Mo went off as a 1-5 favorite in that race and ran that way.
He ran pretty fast, didn't he?
Absolutely.
Uncle Mo, and then he won the Breeders' Cup. He didn't do much after that, but as a 2-year-old, I can see why you loved Uncle Mo's Champagne. I'm going to go with a champion not only at 2, Matt, but I'm going to do you 2 better in that this was a champion 3 consecutive years. I'm talking about the great Spectacular Bid, Buddy Delp's best horse to ever look through a bridle. Spectacular Bid came into the 1978 Champagne as one of 3 big horses going in the Champagne. Calumet had an undefeated and much talked about Tim the Tiger, and Secretariat's first crop included a juvenile that just dominated at Saratoga named General Assembly. Spectacular Bid was coming off an incredible win at Atlantic City in the World's Playground. We were there to watch it, Matt, and Spectacular Bid proved best, and he never looked back over those other 2 in 1978.
One of your favorite horses of all time, huh, Brian?
He's in my top 10. He's one of my favorites and one of the best horses I've ever seen, Matt, without a doubt.
Number 8 is Easy Goer. Easy Goer, actually in the Champagne, his win in the Champagne started Easy Goer off to accomplish something that only one other horse has ever accomplished. Win the Champagne, win the Belmont Stakes, and win the Travers.
Wow. New York's Easy Goer.
New York's.
And that's the Champagne was one of the beginnings of that, I guess.
Yes.
The number 7 on our list is a horse I bet a lot of people don't remember. He was a talented runner for Ogden Phipps. His name is Polish Navy. Another Champagne I had the pleasure of attending. Polish Navy was undefeated, and he was very game, and he held off a horse named Demons Be Gone to win the 1986 Champagne. One of the reasons I love this edition so much, Matt, it was a loaded 2-year-old crop, and most of them were in this. Polish Navy, Demons Be Gone, Bet Twice, Java Gold, Gone West were the top 5 horses at the wire in the Champagne, and
wow,
it was one that I will always remember for sure.
That's one heck of a field.
Great Champagne. They don't make it like that every year.
Yeah. In the number 6 spot, we go back to the 1940s to Count Fleet.
Count Fleet.
Count Fleet.
He was
Count,
a good one.
yeah, in the Champagne, Count Fleet started to become a star in the Count Fleet. That was his first big stakes win, and after that, he went on a run. I think we all know what happened. From then he won and won and won, of course, including the Triple Crown in the following year.
Yeah, he never lost after that big Champagne win. Good pick, Matt. Good pick for number 6. Number 5, I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to bring up another one of the greatest horses of all time, but he lost the Champagne. Dr. Fager. Dr. Fager lost the Champagne. I believe the year was 1966. He was not the 2-year-old champion that year. It wasn't Damascus, who didn't race much. It was a horse called Successor. And frankly, Successor wasn't in Dr. Fager's league. But the young Dr. Fager, the young doctor, went out in 109-2 and got burned up a little bit in the Champagne. And this Successor colt ran by him late in the Champagne, beat him by a little over a length. So that's my number 5, Dr. Fager being upset, losing the championship in the 1966 Champagne.
Number 4, another Triple Crown winner, Seattle Slew.
Slew. I was there.
I'm sure you were. You were at all the good races. Seattle Slew, if people remember, was a lightly raced 3-year-old. He didn't make his first start until September, the month before the Champagne.
That's right.
And the Champagne was Seattle Slew's first stakes win, his only stakes win as a 2-year-old, but it was impressive. He came out of the gate and he was 3 lengths ahead almost instantly out of the gate. And coming down the stretch, he put on that Seattle Slew move and accelerated and just went, you know, just wide and ended up in what was the stakes record for a long time, 134-2. That's a heck of a time for a 2-year-old.
And he was the champion, even though that was his only stakes race at 2. So that's how impressive it was. I remember for the moment was a fast 2-year-old, and Slew was just too good. Set that track record, which stood until Devil's Bag came around.
Yes, I think
Devil's Bag came around. Us old guys, we remember Devil's Bag pretty well, don't we, Matt?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He was the thing back, I believe it was 1983. He was the thing. Yeah, he was as hyped a 2-year-old, as good a 2-year-old, but he was as hyped a 2-year-old as I've probably ever seen. And his Champagne was as good a Champagne as was ever run. He just dominated the field like he did in all his 2-year-old starts. He was trained by Woody Stevens.
Yep, Woody.
Just dominated the field, broke Seattle Slew's stakes record, and he was shares of Devil's Bag were arranged during the off season before he came 3. So when he got to his 3-year-old season, he did stumble a little bit, and because he was worth $40 million, largely on this Champagne and a few other big races at Belmont, Devil's Bag never really got the chance to work through his issues at 3. But at 2, Devil's Bag was the real deal.
Absolutely. And in the course of our discussions, we were pretty much agreed on the top 2. It was just a discussion about who would be where. And number 2 goes in 1972 to the race that Secretariat won, but was disqualified in the Champagne. Was disqualified in a way that today the inquiry sign wouldn't even go up in today's world. There was maybe a very light sort of brushing midway through the stretch with Stop the Music, but they took Secretariat down. And if you remember, Secretariat had lost his very first start, and then this was the only other loss, yet Secretariat was Horse of the Year as a 2-year-old.
Horse of the Year, despite being taken down. You know, Matt, I was there, but I don't remember this one. I was a little too young. I do remember my father's story about the 1972 Champagne. He went there He went there with his buddy Bill Quirin, and he decided he was going to bet Stop the Music that day.
Oh,
He figured Stop the Music was a nice 2-year-old, and he figured that the odds would be overwhelmingly in favor of Spectacular Bit, bet way down. And 5, 10 minutes to post, they were actually pretty close on the board. Secretariat was a slight favorite over Stop the Music. So my father flip-flopped. He put his money on Secretariat. He said, well, at these odds, I'm just going to bet Secretariat. Of course, what happens? Secretariat wins easy. Father's Stop the Music just a little bit early in the stretch and gets taken down. My father did not cash that ticket.
that is
Let's
a
go
pretty
to
good.
number one.
That's a pretty good bad beat story, though.
Well, it was a matter of 6 to 5 or even money, and I think Stop the Music might have gone up to 2 to 1, but stuff like that happens. We all know that as horse players. Number one, is there a drum roll? Here's the drum roll. Alidar and Affirmed. This was the final time. This was the final time that Alidar really beat Affirmed conclusively. It was a great race. We already knew by this time that these were a couple of special 2-year-olds. Of course, that would carry on into the Triple Crown and everything. Affirmed had a tough time putting away some early pressure. Darby Creek Road stuck with him for a long time, and Alidar just swooped up. He came off the rail, swooped up on the outside. The track was a little wet, and Affirmed never saw him coming. Alidar just rolled right by him and won by more than a length. Affirmed had his number after that.
Yep, you were a big Alidar fan.
I was.
I was a big Affirmed fan.
Well, good for you. So on the Champagne, at least I got you.
You got me that time.
I got you that time. Not too often after that. All right, let's switch gears. I hope everyone enjoyed our top 10. We're going to do that in the future. It was, again, fun for us, so I hope you liked it. What do we got this week? I think we have a 7-year-old gelding coming back for his second race back since major surgery.
Welcome back again, Wise Dan. Charlie Lepresti has been saying the last couple days that he's got Wise Dan as good as he could possibly be, and people looking at him in the morning say he looks spectacular. He's 7 years old.
He's 7 years old. People, I see the whispers. Is he slowing down? Has he lost a step? We're going to find out, because this field is tough, and among his biggest competition on Saturday afternoon at Keeneland will be Seek Again. And you remember how the Woodford Reserve Turf Classic went down this year on the Kentucky Derby undercard, Matt. Let's roll that video. Wise Dan had his hands full with Seek Again that day. He had a little bit of trouble, but Seek Again gave him everything but the kitchen sink to the wire. Of course, Wise Dan won.
Yeah. And, Wise Dan is running into some other horses that have run really well lately. I think Wise Dan has beaten these horses, but yep, they're all in pretty good shape. We got Kaigan. We got...
who beat him in this race last year?
I think it was Silver Max, huh?
Silver Max is in here. Yeah, Silver Max is in here. Who gave him a real hard time at Saratoga? Optimizer, he's in here. So, yeah, it's a nice field. We're taking a look at the PPs here a little bit, and it's fun to look at Wise Dan's PPs. We talked about Silver Max upsetting him on a race that was taken off the turf last year. That's his only loss. That's his only loss in a long time. Do you realize, Matt, that Wise Dan's won 13 in a row on turf?
And he's a career 11 for 12 going a mile on the turf?
Not bad, I guess.
Not bad.
We wish him well. I look forward to seeing him. I'll be there Saturday at Keeneland, and it's always a pleasure to see the big horse, the big chestnut, the pretty chestnut run. I wish him well. What else we got going this weekend? We got with 2-year-olds. We talked about the Champagne.
Yeah, we got the Champagne and the Frisette at Belmont Park this weekend. The Frisette's got a nice field. It's got two fillies that are both 2 for 2, cavorting.
Stone Street.
Yes, for Stone Street. And Condo Commando for trainer Rudy Rodriguez, who had a fantastic weekend, a fantastic back-to-back stakes wins in on Super Saturday.
Wow, we forgot to mention Rudy on Super Saturday. Belgalante won by a pole. Vijak won his first stakes race in more than a year against a good field in the Kelso. And I think Dad's Caps almost won the Vosburg. That was quite a day for Rudy Rodriguez. Kondo Commando has won both of her races by a pole. That's no exaggeration. She's just demolished her field. One was maiden, 75,000 claiming.
Yep.
One was slop. I'm kind of looking at Cavorting maybe as a horse that's going to be a little bit higher on the odds board, but I think Cavorting is the real deal too. In fact, she beat Angela Renee, who came back and won at Santa Anita this weekend. So that's an interesting matchup. What about the Champagne? I think anyone, it's only a 6-horse field, but I almost think any one of the 6 could win.
I think it's a pretty wide open field in Champagne. We've got another Zayat horse, El Kabir, who was a tremendously impressive maiden winner at Saratoga. And that horse, who knows, that horse could be, the East Coast version of American Pharoah for the Zayat stable. And then we've got the return.
Let's go ahead and roll that videotape while we're talking about El Kabir.
Sure.
That was his second race out. Just a monster performance at Saratoga. There he is just widening away to the wire in a maiden race at Saratoga, and he drew the rail for the Champagne. Who else are we talking about?
We've got the return of I Spent It, who was another one of those very promising super savers, who was trained by Tony Dutrow. Two really strong races at the beginning of his career, and then a little bit of a disappointment in the hopeful. Hey, that was running behind Competitive Edge. He only got beat by Competitive Edge and by 5 lengths there, which may not be that bad, but trainer Tony Dutrow feels like I Spent It was never himself that day. He wasn't acting the way he had been in the paddock, and so it sounds like Dutrow's drawn a line through that race and is expecting to see the old I Spent It. So that he could turn out to be another good one.
Yeah, that was Super Saver, Competitive Edge, of course. So, yeah, I Spent It is another one in here. I like the horse that ran at Churchill Downs, the Street Boss, Holy Boss. He's only had 1 race, and the list goes on. Like we said, it should be an interesting edition of the Champagne Stakes. Going out to California, how about this matchup? 2 Breeders' Cup winners, Golden Sense and Secret Circle. 6 furlongs at Santa Anita. It's the Santa Anita Sprint Championship. Maybe a little shorter than Golden Sense's best. Secret Circle hasn't raced in 8 months or so.
That doesn't usually bother Secret Circle, though.
No.
They usually have that horse revved up and ready to go. I find the Golden Sense going in that race a little bit curious. I don't know. Can we chalk it up to O'Neill's looking at it as a workout for the Breeders' Cup? I don't know. It certainly is not Golden Sense's best distance, and we all know it is Secret Circle's best distance.
I wonder if it would have been more curious than if he had shown up at Keeneland for a mile on the turf against Wise Dan, which, of course, they were thinking about. I think O'Neill didn't have a really great dirt mile option to prep for the dirt mile, so he wanted to sharpen Golden Sense up. They both have questions, but seeing 2 champions like that going head-to-head should be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll after I see the card at Keeneland on Saturday, I'm gonna point the car straight a little bit west and then due north to Indiana Grand to catch the Indiana Oaks and Indiana Derby on Saturday night. And there's a colt there who's just not a lot of people are talking about him yet, but his 3 races down in Florida have just been off the charts. The buyers are over 100 every one of them.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
It's a Triades.
Yeah, pretty amazing, and maybe people aren't talking about him that much because all 3 of his starts were during the summer at Gulfstream Park. Not high profile, but and also unusual that one of Stone Street's horses and a horse that with that much promise would be doing its running down in Gulfstream Park. But like you said, first start over 100, all buyers. I think 2 106s and a 102. I think that's that's doing some running. I don't care what track you're on.
Right, sure. Yeah, he's a monster to some extent, for sure. We don't know how big a monster when he faces better horses. I might just watch this one because I'm of the belief that he's pretty darn good and he's going to be tough to beat. Probably as the favorite. You do have Vickers in trouble in there though to add some competition, coming off a nice Super Derby win. So it should be an interesting matchup. Vicker may be in trouble. I'm taking a Triades, but it should be an interesting matchup at Indiana Grand. We need to talk about, I think, Sunday Spinster a little bit. I was disappointed to hear that it's going to be a small field, but anytime Close Hatches runs, we need to pay attention, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. We want to see Close Hatches do her thing and come out of it in good shape to head to what could be a really, really good, another really, really good addition of the distaff.
Yeah, Keeneland Dirt's going to get tested. A lot of good horses are running over Keeneland's new dirt course. I'm of the belief that Close Hatches is just gonna be her normal great self and dispatch of her fellow fillies and mares in the Spinster on Sunday, and head to the Breeders' Cup as a soon-to-be champion in the distaff. That brings up a question to me, Matt. I want to know, we're 4 weeks away now. I want to know what you think about the Breeders' Cup. If you had to pick one horse right now, I'm not going to hold you to this. Something could happen. Somebody could run a bad race. Somebody's going to get scratched. But if you could pick one horse to win any Breeders' Cup race right now, who would it be?
Well, I'm going to go way out on a limb here and probably not pick one of the horses that are the obvious ones. I'm going to pick the horse. I've seen every one of his races here. I've seen all three Grade 1 wins from Main Sequence. In the turf, I'm picking Main Sequence to win the turf. I don't care who's coming from Europe.
Telescope is coming.
I don't care who's coming from Europe.
Magician is coming.
I don't care who's coming. Because I got a horse that knows how to win. Doesn't matter what track he's on. Seems to be great chemistry with motion. And if we've got Rajiv back, I mean, there's a little monkey wrench right there. You know, if Rajiv isn't back, right, I'm going to be a little concerned. But if Rajiv isn't back, they're saying it's going to be Johnny V. And that's not too shabby either. But I think Main Sequence is a winner. And
Matt, I like your style.
He knows those Europeans a little bit, but I'm claiming him as an American here.
All right. Well, I like your style. And you know what? You just made a lot of American rooting fans very happy because this is a race that has been slightly dominated by the Euros of late.
Well,
so for you to jump on the American-trained horses bandwagon this early, that's a good sign, America.
Yeah. After the Riders' Cup, we got to look for something to pull out a win for the Americans against the Euros.
No more golf talk in this show. Let's okay. So yours is Main Sequence. That's a little bit outside the box, and I like it. I'm gonna go outside the box too. Not in that she isn't just been a dynamo this year. I'm talking about Close Hatches. But in that, I think a lot of people love Untappable. A lot of people still think that Beholder can do what she's done the last 2 years, win another Breeders' Cup. She's going for a third straight Breeders' Cup. Yeah. So, Untappable and Beholder are serious competition, but Close Hatches just looks like the best female horse in the country to me. And I know she likes Santa Anita. She ran very well last year, and she's just a much better mare this year. She's my most likely to win right now.
Yeah, and that's legitimate, but hey, you got to beat Beholder. Breeders' Cup, horse hasn't lost.
Bring on Beholder, bring on Untappable. Close Hatches, she's the real deal this year. You heard it here tonight.
I think you're going to be on a big favorite there, which is fine. I think I might get a little better price on my horse.
Maybe, but I don't know. You know, I could see with the lure of the 3-year-old filly, Untappable, and the stranglehold that Beholder has had on Santa Anita, I wouldn't be surprised, even with a nice spinster win, if at least all three of them aren't in the same neighborhood on the odds. So in other words, closed hatches is an overlay come Breeders' Cup.
Hey, if closed hatches is an overlay, then you're going to have to race me to the windows on Breeders' Cup weekend.
I don't do that anymore, but and we might be talking about a 9 to 5 overlay, but an overlay nonetheless. All right, Matt, we've come to that time in the show where we try to impart our well, I'd like to say wisdom, but I don't know if I can safely say that for us. But we try to impart something on our watchers here. Do you have a parting shot for us this week?
I do have a parting shot. Now I'm going to go back to our conversations about the champagne. You and I had a great time when we were trying to figure out the top 10 for the champagne. We had a list of, what was it, 18 or 19 horses that we had to pare down to 10.
That's right.
And what was interesting was that most of those horses were before the 90s. And we weren't trying to do that. That's just what we came up with. So my parting shot is, and it certainly isn't a knock on the Breeders' Cup. I love the Breeders' Cup as much as everybody, but the Breeders' Cup has changed the way some of these races play out. The Champagne used to be a huge prize at the end of the 2-year-old season, and you saw our top 10 and horses we left out. It was the best of the best. But the Breeders' Cup has taken a little bit of glitz, a little bit of bubbly out of the Champagne, and it just doesn't have the fields and the prestige that it used to. So a little bit of disappointment there, but we still look forward to the Breeders' Cup. What's your parting shot, Brian?
The Champagne's gone a little flat, I guess, Matt, but it still acts as a good prep. Nice. Well, I'm gonna speak selfishly, if I may. I've watched the Arc. The Arc used to be on TV in the United States way back when. And when I was a little kid, my father would always make sure we had the race from Longchamp on. And I've always wanted to go to Paris and be there at the time for the Arc. And I've never done it yet. I want to get there badly. The Arc is Sunday. I'm leaning towards a 3-year-old Ecto to win on Sunday, but somehow, some way, I need to get to the Arc sometime soon. Have you ever been there, Matt?
No. I've only been to the races in England. Haven't made it over to France, but I tell you, if you're going to France, I'd love to go. Also, that would be a heck of an experience.
HorseCenter from Paris one week.
Maybe.
Sounds like a winning plan to me. All right, so lots of great races. Enjoy them all. Follow Horse Racing Nation. Follow Derby Wars on Twitter. Horse Racing Nation is HR_Nation. Derby Wars is @Derby Wars. Follow them. Follow us. Leave us some comments on HorseCenter on the blog this week. We want to know what you're thinking. We want to know what you want to add to the show. Matt, thanks as always for joining me today.
My pleasure, Brian.
And thank you, Ember. Say goodnight, Ember.
Good night, Ember.
Good night, Ember.
Next week, we'll be talking about all these big races that we previewed this week. See you then.